Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Bodega Cat Book Club, and we are continuing our reading of The Third Eye by Lobsang Rampa. And we're going to start with chapter 17 today. So here we go. Chapter 17, Final Initiation. Here's a little picture of their teacup and their rosary, or their, I don't remember what it's called. Anyways. After, at various lamasseries, I had seen the embalming some half-dozen times. I was one day sent for by the abbot in charge of Chopori. "My friend," said he, "on the direct order of the Precious One, you are to be initiated as an abbot. As you have requested, you can, like Mingar Dundal, continue to be addressed as Lama. I merely give the message of the Precious One." So, as a recognized incarnation, I had again the status with which I left the earth some 600 years before. The wheel of life had revolved full circle. Sometime later, an aged Lama came to my room and told me that now I must undergo the ceremony of the little death. "For, my son, until you have passed the gateway of death and returned, you cannot truly know that there is no death. Your studies in astral traveling have taken you far. This will take you much farther beyond the realms of life and into the past of our country." The preparatory training was hard and prolonged. For 3 months, I led a strictly supervised life. Special courses of horrible tasting herbs added an unpleasant item to my daily menu. I was adjured to keep my thoughts on that alone which is pure and holy, as if one had much choice in a lamasery. Even sampa and tea had to be taken in less quantity. Rigid austerity, strict discipline, and long, long hours of meditation. At last, after 3 months, the astrologers said that the time was now right. The portents were favorable. For 24 hours, I fasted until I felt as empty as a temple drum. Then I was led down those hidden stairs and passages far below the potala. Far down we went, flaring torches in the hands of the others, nothing in mind. Down through the corridors I had traversed before. At last we reached the end of the passage. Solid rock confronted us, but a whole boulder was swung aside at our approach. Another path confronted us, a dark and narrow path, with the odor of stale air, spices, and incense. Several yards farther on, we were stopped momentarily by a ponderous gold-sheathed door, which was slowly opened to the accompaniment of protesting squeaks, which echoed and re-echoed as if through a vast space. Here the torches were extinguished and butter lamps lit. We moved ahead into a hidden temple carved from the solid rock by volcanic action in days of long past. These corridors and passages once had led molten lava to the mouth of a belching volcano. Now puny humans trod the way and thought that they were gods. But now I thought we must concentrate on the task at hand, and here was the temple of secret wisdom. 3 abbots led me in. The rest of the lamastic retinue had melted away in the darkness as the resolving memories of a dream. 3 abbots, aged, desiccated with years and gladly awaiting their recall to the heavenly fields. 3 old men, perhaps the greatest metaphysicians in the whole of the world, ready to give me my final ordeal of initiation. Each carried in the right hand a butter lamp, and in the left a thick stick of smoldering incense. Here the cold was intense, a strange cold seemingly not of this earth. The silence was profound. What faint sounds there were served merely to accentuate that silence. Our felt boots made no footfalls. We might have been ghosts sliding along. From the saffron brocade robes of the abbots, there came a faint rustle. To my horror, to my hair. It's funny. Sorry about that. To my horror, I felt tingles and shocks all over me. My hands glowed as if a fresh aura had been added. The abbots I saw were also glowing. The very, very dry air and the friction of our robes had generated a static electric charge. An abbot passed me a short gold rod and whispered, "Hold this in your left hand and draw it along the wall as you walk, and the discomfort will cease." I did, and with the first release of stored electricity, nearly jumped out of my boots. After that, it was painless. One by one, butter lamps flickered into life, lit by unseen hands. As the wavering yellow light increased, I saw gigantic figures covered in gold and some half buried in uncut gems. A Buddha loomed out of the gloom, so huge that the light did not reach beyond the waist. Other forms were dimly seen, the images of devils, the representations of lusts, and the forms of the trials which man had to undergo before the realization of self. We approached a wall on which was painted a 15-foot wheel of life. In the flickering light, it appeared to revolve and made the senses reel with it. On we went until I was sure we would crash into the rock. The leading abbot vanished, and I had imagined to be a dark shadow was a well-concealed. What I had imagined to be a dark shadow was a well-concealed door. This gave entrance to a path going down and down, a narrow, steep, winding path where the faint glow of the abbot's butter lamps merely seemed to intensify the dark. We felt our way haltingly, stumbling, sometimes sliding. The air was heavy and oppressive. Just making sure I didn't lose my line there. Okay, the air was heavy. Where was I? The air was heavy right here. The air was heavy and oppressive, and it felt as if the whole weight of the earth above was pressing down on us. It felt as if we were penetrating the heart of the world, a final bend in the tortuous passage, and a cavern opened to our view, a cavern of rock glittering with gold, veins of it, lumps of it, a layer of rock, a layer of gold, a layer of rock. So it went on. High, very high above us, gold glinted like stars in a dark night sky, as sharp specks of it caught and reflected back the faint light in the lamp's shed. In the center of the cavern was a shining black house, a house as if made of polished ebony. Strange symbols ran along its sides, and diagrams like those I had seen on the walls of the lake tunnel. We walked to the house and entered the wide, high door. Inside were 3 black stone coffins, curiously engraved and marked. There was no lid. I peered inside, and at the sight of the contents, I caught my breath and felt suddenly faint. "My son," exclaimed the leading abbot, "look upon these. They were gods in our land in the days before the mountains came. They walked our country when seas washed our shores, and when different stars were in the sky. Look, for none but initiates have seen these." I looked again, fascinated and awed. 3 gold figures, nude, laid before us, 2 male and 1 female. Every line, every mark was faithfully reproduced by the gold, but the size, the female was quite 10 feet long as she lay, and the larger of the 2 males was not under 15 feet. Their heads were large and somewhat conical at the top. The jaws were narrow with a small, thin-lipped mouth. Thin-lipped mouth. The nose was long and thin, while the eyes were straight and deeply recessed. No dead figures, these. They looked asleep. We moved quietly and spoke softly as if afraid they would awaken. I saw a coffin lid to one side. On it was an engraved a map of the heavens, and how very strange the stars appeared. My studies in astrology had made me quite familiar with the heavens at night, but this was very, very different. The senior abbot turned to me and said, You are about to become an initiate, to see the past and to know the future. The strain will be very great. Many die of it, and many fail, but none leave here unless, uh, but none leave here alive unless they pass. Are you prepared and willing? I replied that I was. They led me to a stone slab lying between two coffins. Here, at their instruction, I sat in the lotus attitude with my legs folded, my spine erect, and the palms of my hands facing up. 4 sticks of incense were lighted, one for each coffin and one for my slab. The abbots each took a butter lamp and filed out. With the heavy black door shut, I was alone with the bodies of the age-old dead. Time passed as I meditated upon my slab. The butter lamp which I had carried spluttered and went out. For a few moments, its wick smoldered red, and there was the odor of burning cloth. Even then, even that faded and was gone. I lay back on my slab and did the special breathing which I had been taught throughout the years. The silence and the dark were oppressive. Truly, it was the silence of the grave. Suddenly, quite suddenly, my body became rigid, cataleptic. My limbs became numb and icy cold. I had the sensation that I was dying in that ancient tomb more than 400 feet below the sunshine. The violent shuddering jerk within me. A violent shuddering jerk within me, and the inaudible impression of a strange rustling and creaking as of old leather being unfolded. Gradually, the tomb became suffused by a pale blue light, like moonlight on a high mountain pass. I felt a swaying, a rising and falling. For a moment, I could imagine that I was once more in a kite, tossing and jouncing at the end of the rope. Awareness dawned that I was floating above my flesh body. With awareness came movement. Like a puff of smoke, I drifted as if on an unfelt wind. Above my head, I saw a radiance like a golden bowl. From my middle depended a cord of silver blue. It pulsed with life and glowed with vitality. I looked down at my supine body, now resting like a corpse amid corpses. Little differences between my body and those of the giant figure slowly became apparent. The study was absorbing. I thought of the petty conceit of present-day mankind and wondered how the materialists would explain the presence of these immense figures. I thought, but then I became aware that something was disturbing my thoughts. And then I became aware that read it twice. Okay, but then I became aware that something was disturbing my thoughts. It seemed that I was no longer alone. Snatches of conversation reached me. Fragments of unspoken thoughts, scattered pictures began to flash across my mental vision. From far away, someone seemed to be tolling a great, deep-toned bell. Quickly, it came nearer and nearer until at last it appeared to explode in my head, and I saw droplets of colored light and flashes of unknown hues. My astral body was tossed and driven like a leaf upon a winter gale. Scurrying flecks of red-hot pain lashed across my consciousness. I felt alone, deserted, a waif in a tottering universe. Black fog descended upon me, and with it a calmness not of this world. Slowly, the utter blackness unfolding me rolled away. From somewhere came the booming of the sea and the hissing rattle of shingle under the drive of the waves. I could smell the salt-laden air and the tang of the seaweed. There was a familiar scene. I lazily turned on my back in the sun-warmed sand and gazed up at the palm trees. But part of me said, I had never seen the sea, never even heard of palm trees. From a nearby grove came the sound of laughing voices, voices that grew louder as a happy group of sun-bronzed people came into light. Giants, all of them. I looked down and saw that I too was a giant. To my astral perceptions came the impressions. Countless ages ago, Earth revolved Earth revolved nearer the sun in the opposite direction. The days were shorter and warmer. Vast civilizations arose, and men knew more than they do now. From outer space came a wandering planet. Came a wandering planet and struck the earth with a glancing blow. The earth was sent reeling out of its orbit and turning in the opposite direction. Winds arose and battered the waters, which under different gravitational pulls heaped upon the land, and there were floods, universal floods. Earthquakes shook the world. Lands sank beneath the seas, and others arose. The warm and pleasant land, which was Tibet, ceased to be a seaside resort and shot some 12,000 feet above the sea. Around the land, mighty mountains appeared, belching out fuming lava. Far away in the highlands, rifts were torn in the surface, and vegetation and fauna of a bygone age continued to flourish. But there is too much to write in a book, and some of my astral initiation is far too sacred and private to put into print. Sometime later, I felt the visions fading and becoming dark. Gradually, my consciousness, astral and physical, left me. Later, I became uncomfortably aware that I was cold with lying on a stone slab in the freezing darkness of a vault, probing fingers of thought in my brain. Yes, he has returned to us. We are coming. Minutes passed and a faint glow approached. Butter lamps, the three old abbots. You have done well, my son. For 3 days you have lain here. Now you have seen, died, and lived. Stiffly, I climbed to my feet, swaying with weakness and hunger. Out from that never-to-be-forgotten chamber and up to the cold. Out from that never-to-be-forgotten chamber and up to the cold, cold air of the other passages. I was faint with hunger and overcome with awe that I had seen and experienced. I ate and drank my fill, and that night, as I lay down to sleep, I knew that soon I would have to leave Tibet and go into strange foreign countries, as foretold. And now I can say that they were and are stranger than I would have imagined possible. End of chapter 17.